Hello and welcome to the foster orientation for the National Newfoundland Rescue. My name is Quinn. I'm one of the foster adopter support team managers and I'm a certified dog trainer. First and foremost, thank you. We're a foster-based organization and that means that we don't function without foster homes. Let's dive right in. The first thing we need to discuss is decompression. All dogs go through decompression, though it is on a spectrum. Some dogs decompress harder than others and some dogs decompress longer than others. A good general rule of thumb is the 3-3-3 rule. This is the first 3 days will be a time of acute stress for that dog. Then you have the next 3 weeks will be a time of moderate stress. And finally, the first 3 months will be a time of mild stress. What you can expect to see in the first 3 days is a lot of panting, pacing, whining. This will often restart with environmental changes. So it may feel like the dog just got settled and then there's a knock at the door and suddenly the dog gets up and starts panting, pacing, whining all over again. Most dogs will exhibit separation anxiety. In fact, this is our number one complaint from fosters. So please be aware of that and be prepared. Inappetite is very normal. You'll find that your foster doesn't take treats very much at first, and they may not eat their meals either. Puppy behaviors or bad behaviors, unwanted behaviors such as jumping, humping, mouthing, nipping, maybe stealing the remote. This is all very normal in those first 3 days. Hypervigilance and barking at sounds, things that they see outside is also very normal. You might find that the dog has a witching hour or they're a little bit temperamental. Excessive drinking is very normal, so please leave plenty of water out for your foster. Many dogs have potty accidents in the first couple days or lack of potting altogether. Please use a puppy routine to mitigate accidents in your home. Some of these behaviors will naturally dissipate as you move out of the first 3 days and into the next 3 weeks. However, some will stick around. Separation anxiety does tend to stick around until about day 10 or maybe all the way up until 3 weeks. You'll see some of those puppy behaviors still, some jumping, mouthing, feeling the remote. You might see some hypervigilance still with sound or movement outside. If you've been using a puppy routine, you probably won't see potty accidents and moments of panic or nervousness. Maybe you think the dog has settled in quite well to your home and then a sound goes off that they don't recognize and all of a sudden you see a mini 5-minute glimpse of that first 3 days all over again. Most of this will dissipate by the time we get into the first 3 months, where the dog will have a lot of confidence building, relearning behaviors. This is a honeymoon phase. And again, we fosters don't always get to see this. What are the top 5 behaviors that people report back to us? Well, panting, pacing, separation anxiety, excessive drinking, and barking. So please be especially prepared for these behaviors. We're now going to watch a video of what I would consider fairly normal behaviors during the first 3 days of decompression. Or is that going to make you nervous, show you so much attention? So when we consider that all dogs go through decompression, and this is a time of acute stress for the dog, we want to make sure that we're not labeling dogs during the first week. So try not to say things like the dog isn't food motivated, they have stranger danger, they're resource guarding, or they're antisocial with other dogs, because most of the time this is not going to be true in the long run for that dog. We're now going to hear from NNR President Tracy on her experience with one of her fosters.
We talk a lot about the first 3 days being really critical for a dog. My recent experience with this was fostering a dog who had been in several homes. Each home gave her up as an aggressive dog. They labeled her as an aggressive dog. None of those homes had had her for more than 2 days. And when she got to my house, she heard my dogs and her hackles went up. Every hair on the back of her neck and down her spine was standing straight up. She was head low, growling, showing all these signs of stress. And if I didn't know better, I would at this point label her an aggressive dog. And when we label dogs like that, especially during this period of time when they are not themselves, then we start thinking from a placement perspective, this dog is unadoptable, or we have to look at homes that have experience with aggression. So you're taking the 100 homes that they could be looking at and you're narrowing it down to maybe one or two choices. So you're not finding their dream home, you're finding where they can just exist. So if we instead spend that first 3 days creating a relaxing, almost spa like environment where things are quiet and their world is kept small and they're not introduced to any new people, they're not introduced to any new pets. We just keep things as calm and quiet as possible. Then we really get to see the dog start to show their real personality. So whenever I have a foster, on the fourth day, I think, "Nice to meet you. I'm Tracy. You can start letting me learn about you."
NNR does not recommend integrating the dog into your home until after the first 3 days. In the meantime, you're going to want to set up a safe zone or a safe space, or even multiple safe spaces throughout the home where they can decompress that are low stimulation spaces. These are areas where they can't get in too much trouble. They're not going to find the remote and run off with it. They don't need to interact with your pets, your dogs or cats. They're not going to see strangers coming into the home if you have somebody stopping by for the furnace or whatnot. Like the way that Tracy describes this as a dog spa, it's really meant to be an area of relaxation for your foster. So you want to make sure to mischief proof this area. Use curtains to visually block a busy home or a busy neighborhood. We want white noise so that the dog doesn't hear sounds outside very well and get that hypervigilant barking going. Have some soft, clean beds for them and maybe a calming scent such as lavender. Because separation anxiety is so normal for the first 3 days, you want to hang out with your foster as much as possible and be a calm presence for them. So please be prepared to stay in your foster safe space for a large majority of the first 24 hours. Outside of that, you might find it's easier to have multiple safe zones around your house. For example, if you're cooking in the kitchen, it might be easiest to have a safe zone in the kitchen where the dog can be blocked from your dog, your cats, your kids. They can't get into food on the counter, but they're also with you while you're making dinner. You can see two examples here of a safe space that is a separate room. This is really good for the first 24 hours minimum. You may find you need this for the first 3 days altogether. You can also see two examples of safe spaces that are a little more mobile around the home. One is an X-Pen setup and one is a soft-sided crate. NNR has two firm policies. One, we do not integrate dogs for the first 3 days into our home. Means we don't bring a dog into our home and just throw them into the mix with whatever else we have going on. We use things like safe spaces. And two, keep a leash on your foster at all time for the first 10 days. Many people find that, especially skittish fosters, don't like having a leash on them. It drags behind, makes a loud noise, and can spook them a little bit. So for skittish dogs, you may need something like a kennel leash or a groomer's leash, which is pictured here on the left. You still want to use a normal, sturdy leash for outside. These are Newfoundland dogs, and you shouldn't expect a thin little cat leash or kennel leash to hold the Newfoundland dog back. The first reason for this is you never want to grab directly onto a dog's collar. This is a significant bite risk. The other reason is we want to redirect dogs away from trouble. They are prone to puppy behaviors in that first 3 days, even for adult dogs. This is due to stress. They may also try to get into the trash can, get up on the counter, or bolt out a door. You need something to be able to grab onto the dog that is not their collar. Now we're going to get to a section of the orientation most people are excited about, and that is body language. Let's start easy. What does a happy dog look like? Well, most of you know a happy dog will look relaxed, neutral, soft, and calm. Their ears should be in the neutral position, their eyes should be soft, their jowls and mouth should be loose, and they should have rhythmic, easy breathing. How do you know if an introduction is going especially well? Well, if one or both dogs plops down into a play bow, that's where their elbows touch the ground and their butt will be in the air. You might see a side body invite of play, or you might see one dog following along, sniffing behind the other dog where they've been from a decent distance and loose. Speaking of sniffing, dogs gather a lot of information from a butt sniff. It's more than just a strange dog thing. They gather age, reproduction status, health, mood, and diet all from a sniff. That's why sometimes, if my foster is especially nervous, I will have my resident dog sit up against a gate, so there's a gate between the dogs. My resident dog is facing me. I'm giving them treats, and I'll allow the foster to come up to the gate, do just a sniff, sniff, move along of my resident dog in order to find out that my dogs are healthy, happy, and well cared for. Let's look at an example of a play bow. Here you can see these two pups are being introduced, and the one plops down into a beautiful play bow. Most people know what a happy dog looks like, and most people know what an angry dog looks like. The most important signals, in my opinion, are those that are in between. They're a dog's first line of communication that they're uncomfortable with the situation and they are asking for a break. If we ignore cutoff signals, the situation may escalate. The first one is a dog trying to visually block themselves from the thing that's bothering them. They might literally try to walk behind something, or they might just turn their head away. The second would be a dog plopping down and scratching themselves. The third would be a lip lick. This is where their tongue flicks out of their mouth. The fourth would be a dog shaking off. Maybe you've seen two dogs playing and it gets a little rough and rowdy, and then those dogs pause and shake off. The fifth signal might be a stress yawn or a conflicted yawn. And the final one would be a dog walking off and doing this, don't mind me, I'm so busy sniffing the smell over here kind of sniff. Obviously, there are contexts where all of these behaviors are normal. A dog scratching who has an itch, a dog licking their lips when there's treats out, a dog shaking off when they're wet, or yawning when they get up from a nap. And of course, we see our dogs sniff all the time. Where we would be suspicious that these are cutoff signals when these behaviors don't make sense for the context. For example, if two dogs are in the middle of playing and one dog keeps yawning, that doesn't make sense. That dog's not sleepy. Another example might be if you're grooming your dog and they pause and lick their lips, or perhaps at a vet appointment after your dog gets a shot and they shake off. They're not wet. Now we will watch a video of a dog giving a polite cutoff cue. This dog is uncomfortable with the situation and asking for a break, and the other dog complies with this. Here we can see two dogs playing. They're about to go under this deck, and I'm guessing that white dog got nervous about playing under the deck and does a shake off. The black dog here complies and gives her a break and goes pee on something, as male dogs often do. Another possibility is a polite cutoff cue and a mirrored response. This is where a situation gets a little intense between two dogs. The one says, I need a break, I'm uncomfortable, and the other complies by giving a very brief break, mirroring that cutoff signal. It's almost as if they're in agreement saying, yeah, that was intense. I felt that too. I got a little nervous as well. And this is quite rough play for an adult and a puppy. think the adult was maybe a little frustrated with the puppy, and the puppy was wondering why the adult was being so rough. The adult kind of does a body slam with that puppy, shakes off, and the puppy mirrors that response, which is really wonderful to see, especially in a dog that young. Now, sometimes it's bound to happen where a dog gives a polite cutoff cue, and unfortunately, their doggy friend gives a rather rude response. They don't give the dog a break. In these situations, I'm not going to jump in and start throwing elbows. I'm not going to yell and start grabbing dogs, but I am going to pay closer attention to that situation because I don't want it to escalate out of control. So here we can see a dog gives a shake off, and unfortunately, their playmate does not comply. They go right back in for more play. We're going to look at one final example of a dog giving a polite cutoff cue, asking for a break, and the other dog does not comply. If I think it's going to start escalating, I will positively interrupt and redirect those dogs. If this is happening on repeat, I'm going to redirect anyway because I don't want one dog to be bullied by another dog. Okay, so we can see two dogs playing. It is quite rough. And one dog goes off and starts sniffing. And this would be a really nice moment for that other dog to have given a break. As previously mentioned, the first 3 days is a time of acute stress, so we can expect stressed or scared body language. Some typical examples of stressed or scared body language would be a C-shaped body with a tucked tail, the head dipping low, ears pulled back, balky, slow, or stubborn behavior. If your dog is balking at the end of a leash, refusing to get into a vehicle, or has slow, stompy steps, that is an example of stressed behavior. Also, whale eye, where you can see a lot of the whites of their eye, these are stressed dogs. Why does this matter? Well, most aggressive, stubborn, or dominant behavior comes from a place of fear. This is why reducing fear and recognizing fear will often reduce these behaviors. It's important to note that antisocial behavior is really normal during decompression. Just like in humans, when dogs are really stressed, they're not at their most socially flexible. If I get into a car accident, I'm probably not going to be a social butterfly. Recognizing stressed or scared body language is only half the equation. When you see a stressed dog, give them space, give them agency, and keep plenty of treats on you at all times. Keep them up high in every room and redirect the dog with yummy treats. We're now going to watch a video showcasing some classic stressed body language. The first stress signal we're going to see is a whale eye. This is where you can see a lot of the whites of the dog's eye. Some people call this a side eye. It's more accurately often called a whale eye. Here is a low tucked tail, and their back is also quite curved. Dog is very nervous. Again, we have a C-shaped body and a low tail. This is a stressed or conflicted yawn. And slow, exaggerated steps, stubborn or mule behavior. Newfies are very sensitive dogs. They're often called stubborn. In those contexts, I frequently wonder if that dog is actually nervous or having some sort of pain, such as hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia, which is other joint issues common in the breed. Again, we'll look at those stompy, slow steps. That's a dog balking on their leash. Here we're going to see ears pulled back. See the black dog there has her ears pulled back. I think she's quite annoyed, understandably. That puppy also has their ears pulled back. Here we'll see a lip lick or a tongue flick. It's quite fast. So what are some signals that things are headed in a direction you really don't want them to go? Well, the first thing you're going to notice is a lot of stillness and tension. Overall, that soft, neutral dog will become tense. They will have maybe a hard stare, like when your dog sees a squirrel across the yard, they're really locked in. They might have tense ears. They can be either all the way forward or all the way back, but they're going to be somewhat pinned in that position. Their lips and mouth may appear very tight and taut, and you're going to see this stillness for 2 or 3 seconds. Let's talk about the tall dog rectangle test. If you imagine a dog standing tall and confident, underneath them, you should be able to imagine a neutral rectangle. That dog is feeling confident and playful. Now let's imagine that that is a backwards leaning rhombus. Their butt is down, their legs are pushed back in the front. That dog might be feeling scared or threatened. And let's now imagine a forward leaning rhombus. That dog might be feeling confrontational. They're up on their toes and they're leaning towards the thing they're engaging with. That picture on the top, you can see a dog with tense ears, a hard stare, their forward posture, tight mouth, hackles raised, and a flag tail tight and up over their back. You may also see some frozen side eye and, of course, growling, snarling, or air snapping. In these situations, I will always interrupt. Use a positive, happy tone to interrupt the situation, grab the leashes of the dogs, use treats, and redirect. We're going to watch a video where I think a foster did an amazing job. She kept it lighthearted and she preemptively interrupted a situation that was starting to escalate. I'm going to pause the video right here. Can you see that that dog has a hard stare, forward ears, a tight mouth, and a flag tail? It's lasting a couple seconds.
Lexi? Who is that? That's a nice boy.
And here you can see that there was food out, which is, I'm guessing, the source of conflict
Nice boy.
right there. But I love that the foster here just uses the dog's name in a happy tone to interrupt the situation. She says, "Looksy." There we go. Now, what happens when a tense moment is not interrupted? When a dog is allowed to escalate to over threshold? Let's go ahead and watch a video of that. Bird stare there. Hackles are raised. Forward ears. That would have been a great moment to interrupt in a happy tone. And of course, the dog goes over threshold. Now we'll look at a video that combines two of these concepts. We have a cutoff cue earlier in this video, and later we're going to see a lot of tension and stillness. Okay, so we're going to see some avoidance behavior. The dog is going to try to visually block themselves from this situation. She's walking away. The foster dog unfortunately follows. We have a correction followed by quite a bit of stillness there. Okay, there's the correction, and then both dogs are quite still before it does diffuse, thankfully. In this video, we're going to see two dogs who shortly following this day had multiple altercations, unfortunately resulting in stitches for one of the dogs. Both dogs look very avoidant, and you can see a lot of tension on the one dog's face. They're very stiff and still. Now, I'm going to separate introductions and integration, which I view as two slightly distinct things. Now, personally, I wait until the appetite and digestion of the foster has returned to normal to do introductions. This will take about 3 to 4 days. However, some people do introductions a little sooner for a myriad of reasons. Just please don't label a dog as antisocial if you did introductions a little sooner, and be willing to call it at the first sign of trouble. Remember, we don't want a bad experience to turn into a lifelong fear for that dog. Prior to introductions, make sure both dogs have exercised, choose a neutral open location, and please be watching body language throughout. We're going to watch a short video on how we recommend doing introductions. The first thing I'd like people to do is to simply parade the dogs by each other at a nice distance. I'd actually prefer more of a distance than what is shown in this video, but the dogs should just get a quick glimpse of each other from a distance that you can then gauge their reaction from that. If that goes well, then you can try parallel walking. Parallel walking, again, we want a nice distance and to allow the dogs to keep moving. That way they're not hyperfixating or anything like that. Again, remember to call it if it's going poorly. Next, if the dogs are doing well with that, you can put them a little closer together, which would lead well into follow the leader. The reason we really like follow the leader is it allows the dog to get a quick sniff of the other dog as they pass by. So a little sniff, sniff, and then move along. Now, just because introductions went well does not mean you want to bring the dogs right into the home together and expect them to just live together now. Introductions are slightly different than integration. Prior to integration, please clean up anything that could be a fight. This would be toys, food, food bowls, beds, and clothes crates. Early integration is often simply asking dogs to live together through something like a gate. On the left here, you can see where a visual block was needed. That's a blanket draped over a gate. And on the right, you can see where a double gate was needed. Now, I like to think of integration as layers. These are layers you peel back as the dogs show they are able to successfully handle the previous level. Now, there are context layers. So, a hard context might be cooking dinner in the kitchen, and an easy context might be a quiet morning in the living room. And there are also separation layers. Here are some visual examples of separation layers. As the dogs get more used to living together, we peel back these layers little at a time. There are certain contexts where a small suggestion of leaving the other dog alone is all you need for dogs who have now been introduced and living together for a couple days. Now we will discuss what I feel is the most important section of this orientation. These are common ways we see dog bites within the NNR. The first is reaching your hand over the top of a dog's head. This is not only threatening, but many dogs coming in have ear infections. Instead, pet on the chest or shoulder. Second, do not grab onto a dog's collar. Always keep a leash on your foster at all times for 10 days. This prevents collar grabbing, which is a significant bite risk. Don't startle your foster while asleep. Instead, gently announce your presence as you enter a space. Next, inserting yourself into a dog fight. Fosters should not put hands or arms into a dog fight. Do not interrupt your foster while they are eating meals. Give them plenty of space and time to finish their food. Imagine that you do not know where your next meal is coming from. You're more likely to save and hoard resources as well as guard them. Instead, guide them out of that space gently. Use a happy tone and treats. Once they're somewhere like the yard, have someone else go back in and clean up their meals. Similarly, do not reach for treats or toys near your foster. Just because they appear not to care about an item doesn't mean they don't actually value it. And finally, the number one way we see dog bites at NNR is trying to retrieve a stolen item. Never chase down, yell at, and try to grab an item away from your foster. Greeting a stressed dog and creating that first impression is very important. Remember, dogs are not at their best during the first 3 days. First, remove any hats or sunglasses that obscure your face. And don't make any prolonged eye contact with the dog. Don't pace or move abruptly and sit in a chair, not on the floor. Let them approach you. We highly recommend petting dogs on their chest or shoulder. Don't reach directly over a dog's head. The NNR instructs all fosters to use the pet pause test. This is exactly how it sounds. Pet the dog twice, pet, and then pause. Allow the dog to tell you whether they would like that affection to continue. We will now watch a video example of the pet pause test. To do the pet pause test, simply pet your dog 2 times in a non-threatening area like the shoulder. Then pause and allow the dog to tell you whether they would like that to continue. NNR foster Betty clearly says she would like more pets. Here's another example with an NNR foster. 2 pets on the shoulder. He does not make it clear he would like more pets. How about NNR foster Mac? 2 pets on the shoulder. Pause. Mac says, more pets, please. And how about this pup? Notice that yawn and tongue flick. No, thank you. The best way to stop a fight is to prevent a fight. Introduce and integrate slowly. Give the dogs lots of breaks from each other. Clean up any valuable resources. And to prevent jealousy, keep affection and attention short and equal between dogs. Keep treats on your person at all times to redirect intense behavior. If a fight does break out, my number one recommendation is to toss a heavy blanket over the 2 dogs. Use something very thick like the topper to an outdoor area rug. This has 3 purposes. 1, it surprises the dogs, which may end the fight. 2, it allows you to reach and grab the leash of the foster out from under and pull them out of the fight. And 3, if you do need to reach in and grab a dog, you now have something wrapped around them which is sturdy and thick, protecting you from redirection bites. 2, splashing water, such as from a water dish, or using a hose if you're in the yard on the dogs. And 3, something loud like a foghorn. I want to take a moment to say these should never be tools for correcting unwanted behavior. These are emergency protocols for breaking up a fight. I want to take a moment to discuss resource guarding prevention. Step 1, management. Clean up any high-value resources, clutter, and anything you value. If you don't want to see it destroyed by a foster, it shouldn't be in their foster space. Here are some good examples of management from NNR fosters. On the left, we have a tub of work supplies, a computer mouse, a computer keyboard, and on the right, we have a foster who blocked off what is a junk shelf from their young foster dog. When it comes to resource guarding prevention between dogs, have high-value items in separate spaces, such as meals and bones. Do not feed dogs together. Even after the first week, when it comes to toys, use the culture of abundance policy. This means that for every 1 dog, there should be at least that many of that resource plus 1. So let's say that lamb chop is your dog's favorite toy. Then if there are 2 dogs together, there needs to be 3 lamb chop toys. When it comes to resource guarding against humans, NNR has a couple simple policies. The first is to always trade your foster. A common misunderstanding is that we only want fosters to trade if they see signs of resource guarding. No, this is false. Always trade. Trading prevents resource guarding. A second common fallacy is, then aren't I rewarding the steal? I will address this in 2 parts. Part 1, dogs do not understand ownership the way humans do. Think of dog ownership like a library book. That book is yours while you have it, but as soon as you check it back into the library, it is open for anyone else to check out. If you are using the remote and then leave it on the coffee table, you have checked that library book back in. It is open for anyone to take. The second point is that before the dog has the item is the time to work with them on not taking things we don't want them to have, such as a place cue for while you're cooking or during meals, or a positive lead it cue. Once the dog already has the item, now you need to pivot into resource guarding prevention mode. Policy 2. If you see any signs that the dog values that item, freezing, side eye, stillness, toss a scatter of treats away from the item. Once they have moved away, you can bring them outside before cleaning it up. Humans approaching dogs with valuable items should always be positive. Tossing treats as you approach them while they have a bone or anything similar is always a good protocol. Please never play in your dog's food dish or take things away just because you can. And finally, never punish a growl. This is like taking the batteries out of a smoke detector. A growl is a dog's way of telling us that a bite is coming. It's a warning. Punishing the growl might mean that the growl doesn't happen, but it doesn't mean that the bite won't follow. It just means you've lost your warning. Here is a video of me trading my dog for my headphones, which he liked to check out of our home library. You can see there are some freezing over this item, which tells me that he values it. Follow up with a treat so there's no resentment. I'm scattering a pile of treats away, retrieving the item. And still following up with a snack pile. Here's the second video of an NNR foster working with their dog. You can see they had to trade to get the remote back. A common follow-up question is, what if the dog won't trade? Or what if they won't remove themselves from the item, even for a scatter of treats? The answer to that is simple. Then they have that item. You back away and respect their signals or their growling. A vet visit is better than a hospital visit. In my work as a dog trainer, I frequently see dogs killed from resource guarding, far, far more than dogs that die from ingestion of items, which is typically a minor inconvenience. They go to the vet, they throw it up, it's a funny story. Resource guarding that leads to bites, that leads to behavioral euthanasia is not a funny story.